Hello, everyone. Welcome to Doctors Making a Difference. I'm your host, Dr. Peter Crane. I'm a physician in rural Idaho where I've been in practice since 2011. Over the past couple of years, I've had the opportunity to be both a physician and a patient, and I've been so thankful for the doctors and other healthcare professionals who have helped me. I invite you to join us as we highlight physicians around the world who are making a difference in their communities and with their patients. Our goal is to give physicians and other healthcare professionals the tools they need to be successful in medicine, in finances, and in life. What we do makes a tremendous difference for our patients and our communities. Please go to your podcast service or YouTube channel and give us a 5-star review and hit the like or subscribe button. It helps get the message out to others. You can also check out more content on our website, doctorsmakingadifference.com. Finally, if you would like to be on the show or have any questions or topics that you feel should be addressed on the show, please contact me. The easiest way to get in contact is to subscribe to the newsletter and then hit reply to any of the newsletter emails. Welcome to the Doctors Making a Difference podcast. Hey everybody, today we have Dr. Kim Hartwig with us. I'm so pleased that she's here able to join us. Dr. Hartwig practices in northern Idaho and has been in practice there for some time, and I'd like to just introduce you to her and let her introduce herself for a minute. Go ahead, Dr. Hartwig.
Thank you, Dr. Crane. So my name is Kim Hartwig. I am a member of the Nez Perce tribe, but I'm also Dene or Navajo and Cowichan, which is Canadian First Nations. And I've had the privilege of being the medical director for my tribal facility over the past 5 years. That has been very rewarding. Prior to that, I had my own office in Spokane, Washington. I'm a family physician and trained at University of Washington School of Medicine, and was grateful to be able to return home to my town of Lapwai, Idaho, to practice medicine.
That's pretty cool. So think back, Dr. Hartwig, think back just kind of when you were going through those years growing up in Lapwai. I grew up in a small town in Idaho also. And just curious, how did you end up becoming a physician? How did you make that choice to pursue that path?
Yeah, so in Idaho, Lapwai is well known for basketball, and I actually was able to play basketball in college at Loyola Marymount University in LA. And I was initially called to the field of medicine after my older sister, Ruby, who was kind of my role model. She's less than a year older than I am, but she just was a strong, kind, well-rounded person, but was a phenomenal basketball player. And I'm old enough to have had a single qualifying AAU tournament in the region to go to nationals, and we went to nationals probably 3 or 4 times from the time that I was 11 to the time that I was 14.
Wow, that's awesome.
And she got MVP of a couple of times of those tournaments. So she had a lot of talent. Unfortunately, in one of the regional tournaments, she tore her ACL, or injured her MCL and her meniscus. And at that time, they casted an ACL repair from an ankle to her hip. And after she had her cast removed after 6 weeks to allow the repair to heal, she had adhesions and complete atrophy of her leg.
Wow.
The doctors and physical therapists and everyone told her that it was going to take a year and a half for her to come back. And when she did return, which was under that timeline, you couldn't tell that she was injured. And I
Wow.
was just amazed. Yeah, I was amazed
Wow.
by how she recovered and attributed that to the doctor that repaired her ACL. And I know now that it was a lot of her hard work and diligence with her exercises and the physical therapist that worked with her every day. But at that time, I wanted to go into medicine so that I could repair ACL so girls could return to the court. And that kind of started my path, but it all, really continued from there.
Oh, that's fascinating. I think all of us have kind of some personal connection to someone we know that was benefited from, like directly by physicians, whether we ourselves had that or family members. So that's really cool, and it's what a personal story to have your older sister like go through that directly. So how did you end up choosing family medicine? I know I think that was the career path you eventually chose.
Yes, I did choose family medicine. And family medicine um, was something that I felt that I needed to do to go home. In my town of less than 1,000 people, um, being able to care for all of my community, our babies through our elders when they passed, was really important to me. But I didn't particularly like family medicine in medical school. Um, I had um, I had done my core rotations and did internal medicine right before my family medicine rotation. And in internal medicine, I was in the ICU. Had sick patients, of course, that we took care of in the hospital, and kind of controlled much of their care. Um, and when I went to the family medicine clinic, which was my next rotation, I was making suggestions
Oh,
about you need to exercise. You really should stop smoking. You need to eat better, make better dietary choices. And I didn't feel I questioned, like, how can I improve somebody's health when I don't have control of that? But
yeah.
knowing, certainly now, that it's not about control. And I even actually questioned family medicine in residency. I love the OR. Had actually one of the chief of surgery wrote one of my letters of recommendations for residency and told me that if I ever wanted to be a surgeon, to call him, that I would have a residency spot at UW.
Wow.
But did surgery my first 2 months of my family medicine residency, and absolutely was loving life. And I can remember my first faculty meeting, my faculty advisor meeting, just raving about how much I loved surgery. And she asked if I was going to change residencies, and I didn't know that that was a thing.
Oh,
But 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 my call to go home kept me grounded in family medicine the entire time. There aren't very many native doctors to begin with, and to be able to be that person who is able to go home and relate and understand our community in a way that nobody else could unless you were from the community. I'm sure,
hmm.
Peter, in your community, you understand and know a lot more intimate, have a lot more intimate knowledge and understanding about the approaches to care, that nobody else outside of the community would know. And in our treatment facilities or health facilities, on our reservation, we've had several providers that have rotated in and out of our clinic, 2 or 4 years. The Indian Health Service has a loan repayment program, and they would get loan forgiveness to come provide care on our reservation, which was beneficial for us because we got care, but that longitudinal care really wasn't present. And so that that desire really drew me home and kept family medicine kind of uh, as the field that I chose.
Wow. Well, so like one of the things that inspired me one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on this podcast is just for listeners, I got to listen to a wonderful presentation that Kim Hartwig gave of year, I guess it was earlier this year on that very thing about serving in her hometown, working with people from the same, a lot of them are from the same tribal background, and just such a deep, intimate understanding of the people. And I think that's fascinating that even back at the time when you were choosing what specialty of medicine and exploring different things, even at that time, you were as you said, called home. You wanted to be there among people that you understood so uniquely. And I can relate. Like you said, you and I have spoken. I came back to the same little town where I grew up and replaced the doctor that delivered me. So, it kind of comes full circle, and it is unique to come back and work among people that you understand so intimately. So
Absolutely.
that's pretty cool. Well, so you went to Spokane, and I guess I'm just interested in the genesis of, you've had this thread go through your whole career of wanting to serve among some of the of just different people from with similar background to you, but share some of your interest with surgery. I was curious how the rest of that career path, how did it eventually land you through in Spokane and then back in Lapway?
So I trained in residency in Spokane,
Okay.
and Spokane is about 2 hours away from home. Um, I had three babies in medical school,
Wow.
and my
It's impressive.
my husband was home with the kids when they were young, and he had a very supportive network in the community that we are in Spokane, and so that really um, kept us in Spokane as long as we were, because it didn't seem fair to me that you know I was the only factor in where we were for our family and our support. Certainly, home was my ultimate goal, but I needed to take into account, my husband and my children and the support that he had, because staying home is not an easy job.
No.
You're never not on call
Yeah.
for the children, and his sacrifice for our family was much appreciated. And so that supportive community that we had in Spokane led to our remaining longer than I anticipated, but uh, it, it it worked out well. So my first job actually was with the Coeur d'Alene tribe in Indian country. The Coeur d'Alene facility historically has been known as a quality facility, and so I wanted to go learn how to run a quality facility, um, not really knowing that the first 5 years out of residency, there's still a steep learning curve for medicine
Oh yeah.
in general, um, in addition to the administrative stuff that a medical leader of a facility um, might have. But I actually was tapped to be the medical director a year and a half out of residency,
Wow.
um, and that was a because there are so few native doctors. Um, I guess there was an assumption, there is an assumption that because you're a native doctor, if you want to practice in country, you're going to be a leader, because of the few numbers. And so I accepted that role, and it was very helpful. But my family ultimately took me back into Spokane. And then I opened up my own office prior to coming home. And I had that open for about 5 years. And
In
that was
Spokane.
in
Oh
Spokane.
wow.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And that was a great experience. I really, really enjoyed and um, loved my patients, and they were so dedicated. In fact, one of my patients was on the dock in Coeur d'Alene, um, and endured a cut, and it was 5 o'clock when he was on the dock, and he called, and my front desk gal said, so and so's on the phone and has a laceration, and he won't stop anywhere to have it repaired. Can you come for you to
Oh.
sew it? I said, sure. So, we stayed at the office late because of, his desire for me to do it. And while he passed, probably five or six urgent cares on the way.
All right. Right. You have that level of trust you can't replace.
Absolutely. And that was really valuable for me to have. And it was a hard decision for me um, to come home, but my tribal chairman spoke to me about the need for me to be home in 2019. And actually, I had been recruited by several facilities in our region, but never from my tribe. So when my tribal chairman heard that, then he started recruiting me, and um, I just felt like that was, it was time for me to go home to help.
Well, yeah, and that's unique because you like all. It sounds like throughout your whole kind of career arc, you've looked for opportunities to serve people from the tribal nations, and I think I didn't know that you'd opened your own practice. That's so cool. Like you had opportunity to be in a leadership position right in those first 5 years of after residency, which is super hard, and then you opened your own practice. But I'm sure that that draw of going back to where you grew up among your own tribe and your own people, that's got to be a pretty fulfilling thing to be able to do that.
Yes, medicine is a privilege generally, but caring for my fellow tribal members really was a privilege almost beyond explanation, because we believe that the place that we are is not by virtue of ourselves. Our ancestors that have come before us have sacrificed and worked hard and have provided us what we have. And that's our job now, is to provide and build for those coming after us.
Yes. Well, and that's, I think a lot of people feel similar can relate to that. I think a lot of people feel that medicine is a calling, and that where you're asked to go is dictated, by God, or by fate, or whatever a belief system a person has. And so it is really cool that you've been able to respond to that, because you could have been a general surgeon in Seattle, but you are a family physician providing Indian health services in your own home community, which is really cool. One thing I was going to ask you is, if you think back, you've done all these fascinating things, like between residency and then starting your own business, and then serving in leadership positions. We have to like be HIPAA compliant, but are there any cool stories or any stories you would share with us of patients that you've encountered, or unique situations that you've been able to come across as a doctor?
Yeah, I think one of my most memorable cases in in training and in practice was actually, family medicine Spokane was what the residency was called when I went through it. Very OB heavy, so we did a lot of
Oh,
obstetric and surgical obstetrics, and I love the OR, so I was there a lot.
yeah, it's perfect.
Uh, yeah, and there was a young woman who had become pregnant. She was in school at Gonzaga, was 19, and I can remember, you know, usually the time around delivery is exciting, and you know everybody is supportive and anticipating the birth of the babe, and she was a college student, not married, and she had her parents in the room with her, and the clinical staff that was present for her delivery. I just noted a stark difference in that experience with her, because she actually was giving her child up for adoption,
Hmm.
and the adoptive parents were there. And after the delivery, um, the staff just kind of left the room. The excitement that is normally there wasn't there, and I felt um, uh, really proud of this young woman to have carried this child to term, and recognize that she wasn't able to give this child what the child needed in with where she was in life, but that she still gave it life, and was able to give this family a child that they were not able to have themselves. And
Yeah.
the bravery with that. And I told her that after everybody left, that that she was a strong young lady, and how brave she was, and unselfish really she was, to carry this child to term, and you know give it life. Um, that was one that was really profound, and
Those are profound.
kind of.
I can reflect on that. I had the opportunity to be a part of one very similar to that a few years ago, and I just honor the person, the young woman who was the birth mother. And then the adoptive mother. Both are just and both adoptive parents. It's just such a warm. It was an open adoption, kind of like what you described, and I just remember feeling such peace and joy in that experience because the child was the priority for both families, 100%, and that's so cool. You got to be a part of that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that awareness that we were able to experience during that, where really, it's life is not so much about us as it is the future, and a child is very much that. And if we approach life in that manner, where the choices and decisions that we make are really focused on those who come after us and not ourselves, that there are often wiser, although challenging choices because in medicine is that we aren't in medicine for ourselves. We're in medicine to serve and help others, and what better service can you be than providing life to
Yeah.
to it?
Oh my goodness, that's like profound. I want to like encapsulate what you just said because that is like I think that's the nugget of why I was motivated to even start this Doctors Making a Difference podcast is just that. If we are all focused on the negative and the bad and the outcome driven medicine and even the financial side of it, everything just kind of becomes a little bit blurred. But when parents say this is all about the child, or this is all about what comes next for the next generation or the community, or the medicine is all about service, when it comes to that, I think people you kind of forget about some of the other more challenging things that come along the way, or you can see past those trials in any case because it's so wonderful when you can provide something for a person that they couldn't provide for themselves, and that experience of helping to deliver that baby in that unique situation, that's a pretty cool one. So thank you for sharing that. I love it.
Yeah.
Did you have another
There was
one?
there is one other.
Yeah.
Same hospital, same OB floor, different day. There was and I don't remember. I think that she was a Colville native. So uh, Colville native woman had come in to deliver healthy term baby, and just had kind of abrupt distress for the child. And so we ended up taking her to do an emergency section, and the baby didn't survive.
Oh my goodness.
And absolutely. And the next morning, because I assisted with the section, I had to round on the mom, and I was dreading. It's still, sorry, it's still
No,
emotional for me.
yeah,
Mhm.
those are so tender. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so I had to round on the mom, and when I went in, I was emotional before I even entered the room, and because of all that she had done, and she was sitting there with such peace and grace, and had shared with me that her dog had passed away a couple of weeks ago, and in their culture and belief, um, their dog is the caretaker to make sure that their loved one gets to the other side.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so,
That's pretty
and so,
cool.
and so she was, as I said, filled with peace and grace, and consoled me in the situation. But she was such a strong young woman, just knowing with confidence, that her child was going to be with with their ancestors, and that was a pretty profound experience as well. Just seeing how in the midst of such loss, you could have such confidence and faith in what you've been taught.
Yeah. I've thought that off and on for years when some of the times that I feel like maybe that I make the biggest difference as a physician isn't necessarily telling somebody, oh, we're going to manage your blood pressure a little bit better, or get your diabetes a little better controlled. But it is in those moments of uncertainty or loss. And somebody, it's just being there and having being the voice of being a part of the strength of the patient who's going through it. And you have a skill set as a physician to know kind of what comes next and how you can address these difficult, complicated problems, and just being kind of a voice of calm in a terrible storm. Sometimes those moments of connection with patients are profound. And your emotion showed through just talking about that even years later. And I think all of us, I don't consider those traumatic experiences. I consider those blessings to have been a part of things like that. And so thank you for sharing that. That was really kind of you. Any other experiences you'd highlight? Because those are just wonderful things to cool. Any other cool
Mhm.
experiences?
Yeah, so there was a patient at home um, that was battling cancer, and she and the family were coming in fairly regularly for the guidance that you mentioned, um, Peter, and she ultimately succumbed to the cancer. But her sister, who is an employee at our facility, uh, said that after one visit, the patient wanted to give me a dozen roses because she was so appreciative of what I had offered her or gave her or provided her during the visit. And after her sister passed, the after the patient passed, the sister made me a ribbon skirt that has 12 roses on it
Wow.
that won't fade. Yeah,
Wow. Well, I think when we look back, all of us, when we're retired or we're beyond this time, I don't think we're going to remember exactly how many hours you spent on call or even like how much money you made or anything. But I think those experiences you just described will last forever. You'll remember those profound moments of connection and I think just like you described, going back and working with people that you have a real connection with, that's a pretty special thing, and you're in a privileged position to be able to do that. That's awesome.
absolutely privileged position. And letting um, our community know um, really how privileged it is, um, because a lot of times people don't feel like they have value, and who am I compared to this doctor, just things that society tells us. But they absolutely have you know as much dignity as anybody. That I believe that dignity is equal, and for us to be able to assist during those challenging times, but even just during the ordinary times, is really such a privilege that we need to make sure that we don't forget, or that we keep at the forefront of our minds that they're letting us in a lot of times in places where they have challenges in trusting people, but they're trusting us because of our desire to help and to heal and alleviate some of the struggles that they may be having.
Well, and we thank you. We live in a time where I feel like maybe nationwide, maybe even worldwide, there's kind of a low trust between just individuals and other individuals, or between physicians, between doctors and patients, or between people and their governments. I mean, people and institutions. It's just kind of a time of overall low trust, and maybe it was complicated during some of the complexities with COVID, and there's just a lot of challenges. So, what you're describing are these relationships of profound trust with patients, and I guess that's a question is worth asking. How do you foster those kind of relationships? If you're kind of talking to a young Kim Hartwig, or an aspiring young physician, or someone who's thinking about entering medical school, what advice would you give them to foster that type of those kind of endearing, personal, trusting relationships, because they're hard to form.
Yeah, you know, I think um, I think I would, when I naively chose, because I didn't meet my first native doc until I was accepted into medical school, and I didn't know the numbers of native doctors in the country, which were under 1,000 when I matriculated. I was naive, but one of the things that I did was really followed my heart. And you likely, people look at the path into medicine and think, oh, that's too long, oh, that's too hard, oh, all of these challenges that are with it. But when you find something that you um, enjoy with your entire being, it's not work. There's
Right.
not, there's not a day where I feel like, oh, I got to go to work. It's like, okay, what am I going to do today? I mean, what do I get to see? Who do I get to encounter? Who do I get to visit with? And when you are blessed enough by Creator to have that path uh, for you to serve every day and it not feel laborious. And certainly there are laborious times. I'm not saying that you won't absolutely feel those, but you know, when you take that step back and you reflect on your time and your efforts, uh, as you said earlier, those challenges are not what sticks out to us. And so, to a young person, when you find something that resonates with your soul, with your spirit, that's something that is a deep calling for you to do because it protects us, it guides us, it lifts us as much as if not more than the challenges that we encounter, or we wouldn't choose something um, of this nature. And there may be, as in my case, a lot of naive. Uh, there you may be naive towards that path, but the Creator is pulling you along, and that trust and faith that you have to follow that is extremely important. So when you feel something that resonates within you, um, that may be something that Creator is calling you towards you.
That's awesome. That's actually really good insight. If you're just doing a career because somebody else thought it was a good idea, or you think you're going to make lots of money, or etc., maybe those aren't the deepest motivations when times are hard. It's better to find something that you do feel pulled toward, more of as a mission or a calling. But so I wanted to ask you any advice you have on burnout is kind of a big topic, and I feel like every other medical related news article I read talks about shortage in healthcare staff, and everybody's burned out, and electronic medical record systems are too hard, and insurance companies aren't paying, and yeah, and it's just so much negative, and yet I've been so thankful for doctors who've helped me, and I'm sure you can reflect for yourself or patients. I mean, it's just you have to have good doctors. And so I was curious, how have you overcome the burnout stuff in your own life, or how would you advise somebody else to do that? Because you've not only have you entered medicine, but you've stayed in medicine, even in what a lot of people would consider a challenging environment to practice.
Yeah, I think, at the risk of sounding cliche, balance is really important.
Yeah.
And
Basketball,
and
right?
yeah, yes, no, I
Yeah.
still play basketball.
Awesome.
That's
Awesome.
fun. Yeah, I picked up golf recently and I've spent some time on the course, so that's been a challenge because there aren't very many 50-year-old women playing basketball, so I
That's
got to
cool.
compete in another way.
That's cool.
Yeah. But really, really it is. It's taking the time, to be grateful for um, what you have. Gratitude is so important, and for us, and for me, recognizing that you know um, Mother Earth supports every step that I take and has since the time that I you know took a first step. Um, that that importance in who I am, and knowing that everybody has challenges, everybody has gifts, and when you identify those and feel confident in what they are and what you can offer, it's a gift itself to be able to give it.
Hmm.
And yeah, just I think having a lens of gratitude even during the challenges, because when I look back on challenges that I've faced, those were preparing me for the next challenge. That's where growth happens. When you're working out and you're lifting, you're breaking down your muscles, and so when they repair themselves, they're going to be stronger. That's the physical reaction to anything that we do, and so you know doing what you need to get through the challenge, relying on who you need to. We can't do anything alone. You know, you and I can't see a patient by ourselves. I'll tell you a story. When I first opened up my office, I was with Providence for 3 years before I opened up my office, so I had, you know, patients that were waiting for me to get it opened,
Yeah.
and my MA had a scuba diving trip planned the week that I was going to open, and I was like, yes, please go. You know, I'm going to be sitting around twiddling my thumbs. You know, enjoy your time. Come back ready to work. Well, the first day that I opened my office, I had 12 patients, and I had to be everything. I had to,
Wow.
you know, room them, load medication, you know, just function from the time, you know, from the time that they were checked in, completely MA, you know, labs. And that was very overwhelming for
Oh
me.
yeah.
And I was like, you need to get back. Your vacation's over. But that really made me appreciate my staff and what they, you know, how they supported me in my office. But it also um, made me be very thankful that my patients were, you know, they're also ready to support me and uh, allow me to still be their doctor um, in Spokane in the midst of the change. Sorry, there's a fly. I'm
Well, there's a
sitting
fly in
outside.
my room too. I'm inside. You're outside, but I'm inside. They've got matching flies. Oh, that's funny. Well, I think what you just said is important to look past the day to day complexities and see the big overarching reason why we do what we do. And with that in mind, I think at least in my experience, like that feeling of burnout or when somebody feels like they just can't go on, usually comes like in my life. It's when I felt trapped. If I feel like I have no choice, I
Mm,
can't get enough sleep because there's not enough time, or I can't take care of my family, or I can't have any balance because the job is overwhelming, and those who were in positions of authority related to what I did, but not the physicians, maybe the administrative staff, just are looking at numbers, but not looking at the complexities of what we do. So those feelings are legitimate, and I think the what we described, what you talked about, is having an understanding of why we're doing it and having kind of the big overarching mission driven purpose of it is very helpful. The other thing I'd like to just highlight for a minute is I think that there's financial freedom that comes from being prepared. If somebody is just in debt up to their eyeballs and they have bought every toy and they're still in lots and lots of debt, they feel like they're a little bit trapped and could never do things for the pure reason of wanting to help people. And I wondered if you had any tricks or tips or life advice for maybe especially for those who are in residency or early attending physician years to make sure you have that freedom so that later you can express yourself and take good care of your patients.
absolutely. And I think that that's timely because um, uh, I was the medical director of my tribe, and just in the last week I've resigned, and I have the financial freedom to be able to help my people in a way that I truly feel like we need to help. As you mentioned earlier, the blood sugar, the blood pressure, those things are certainly important and standards of care for us to meet. But the wounds from my presentation at the Idaho Academy or the Idaho Academy of Family Physicians Conference, where I shared about the historical obstacles that my tribe has had to overcome or has encountered, really are uh, more important in my opinion about healing. And that's what my next venture is going to be, is to try to help heal those deep wounds that are foundational for health, so that blood sugar matters, so that blood pressure matters. And I wouldn't be able to make a change like this if I didn't have financial freedom. And and really, and we have a big family. We have 6 children, um, um, and being responsible with our finances and uh, paying down any debt that we may have had as quickly as we could, using it smartly. There are there are some benefits to having debt so that you have credit in case you need something that you don't have the money for. But when you look at the savings from not needing to finance something like a car, putting it off a couple of years or even five, paying like you have a car payment when you really don't, so that you can get that vehicle and not have to pay, interest for 60 months. Really, when you look at the numbers, and we're very objective people, right? We're analytical. We analyze a lot of things. When you analyze numbers with what you're paying through financing, it's just astounding
Right.
to realize how much you're paying a bank, to use their money. And the earlier or sooner that you recognize that, and I know, I mean, it's hard. You don't make a lot of money as a resident, um, and you've had to pay, invest a lot um, uh, through medical school in yourself, but that investment in yourself is irreplaceable and invaluable. And your ability to remember and have some discipline. You've had discipline much of your educational career because you are a physician. Maintain that discipline throughout your, especially in your early career when you're finally making money. Um, have that continue to have that discipline so that you can have that freedom to choose what you want to do. Find something in medicine, at least for me, um, gaining understanding um, through my career. I've been practicing for 18 years now, and through my career, I continue to learn about medicine and the realm and really the needs of our patients. And when you do, and health is at the base of your quality of life. When you don't have health, your quality of life is not very good. And when we don't have quality of life, we are not able to provide the best that we can for those who we are serving. And so taking care of yourself first, although it seems, and that's hard for us to do. It's hard for me to do,
Hmm.
to take care of ourselves first, to be, and sometimes we have to be, um, selfish is not a good word choice in my opinion, but we kind of have to be. I'm not sure how else to
Well, you have to
describe
take
that.
care. Yeah, you can't help others unless you're kind of whole yourself. So I think that's good wisdom. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so remembering that when you don't take care of yourself, and residency um, kind of pushes limits on that. But there's a lot of learning that has to happen. So I totally respect that. But learning and recognizing what your limits are, taking care of yourself, but maintaining the discipline that got you where you are is extremely important for you to be at a point where you're in control, because physicians are leaders just by virtue of you being a physician, and that leadership is necessary. But for you to truly be a leader, to be, and I would use the word sovereign. In my tribe, sovereignty is kind of the ultimate independence. And um, for you to have that, you have to be able to sustain all of your needs. And you can do that when you're financially responsible and disciplined to make those tough choices when people are getting cars or boats, as you mentioned, um, refraining from accumulating things, because things don't fulfill us. Things um, not the end to our happiness. The peace and joy that we feel internally from those patients that we're able to serve, our family that we're able to come home and have a meal with, um, you know, tutoring tutoring my children in math still is a joy. We have whiteboards that we get out and
That's awesome.
we race through the problem. What'd you get? But those interactions and relationships and reasons are invaluable and irreplaceable for what we have. And I'm able to provide my children with a life that I didn't have, which um, is a great thing. But teaching them how to be responsible and disciplined and how to work hard and be of service so that they can prepare our world for those who come after.
Yeah, no, it's good. I love that phrase, sovereign, like for that word, because it describes just a real deep meaning of independence. And so all the stuff we've talked about today, being able to like express yourself and be the best physicians you can, and be able to teach your children and have balance. I think it is. The more I go along, the more I realize I think that is really contingent on how you live those first few years after residency. So people who go buy the $3 million house right after residency, they just have the financial golden handcuffs, and they really struggle to ever have the financial independence. And yet, if you live carefully and kind of live like a resident, and you keep going at it until you're back to being broke and out of debt, and then you're careful with your finances, you can have that sovereignty or that financial independence. And then you can say, hey, I want to try a different job, or I want to start something that's more of a passion project, or I want to be able to express myself, or I want to pursue some physical activity that I really like. And anyway, I think that's just great wisdom. And so that's neat. You've been able to put it in action, and I love what you're doing. I think that's so cool. One other thought I wanted to just kind of end on as we're getting close here is when you presented earlier at the Idaho Academy of Family Physicians, and somebody asked, like, said, well, what do you do? I can't remember how they phrased it, but how do you continue to make the biggest difference, or what would you advise somebody? And I remember you said kind of a poignant moment to choose to stay, and I can't remember how you said it, but the idea was that when you're in a place that you have a unique ability to help people, and you make a choice to stay and help them, and to fulfill those parts of your life that are really meaningful, that made a tremendous difference to both to yourself and to your people. Curious if you have any more thoughts on that.
Oh, absolutely. We have to help ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I don't mean, me and my family. I mean us as a tribe and you in your community. We have to choose to help ourselves. And just like we rely on the head cook for a service, for example. So when somebody passes away, there's a woman in our community that's chosen by the family as the head cook. Her responsibility at that time is to prepare the meals until the end of the services until and that responsibility and that the acceptance of that woman to feed all of those that are attending, of course with help from the community, but her yes to our community is really what we need to have. We need to give our yes in whatever way that we can contribute, whether it be, a head cook, whether it be a seamstress making good clothing, whether it be in the role of a nurse or a doctor or a MA or a health administrator. Our yes and conviction to help those that we know and love, because like in your community, and love people, more than just your family. A community is not a mom, a dad, and children. A community are extended family and friends. And, in my language, we don't have a word for cousin. Everybody was a brother or a sister.
Hmm.
And that community is our responsibility to take care of. That's where the Creator placed us. And that's what we choose to do. And that's why going home was so important for me, because it was, my responsibility to provide healthcare, to let the young children see. There are people from our tribe that are doctors, and you can do that too, if that's where your spirit is calling you. But just important for us to show up in the place that Creator has placed us.
Yeah, it's so wise. Thank you so much, Kim. Like these have been, I think those who listen to this will find it really profound because you've not only, it's not just words, it's like a life lived, and the things that you're describing are just sort of the essence of why you chose to become a physician and serve the community and have the financial choices, etc., everything that allows you to be able to follow that path. And I think it's awesome. So I really appreciate you taking the time. Any last words or anything else that you thought of you want to share before we close?
I just want to thank you, Peter, for having this opportunity to share a little bit about who I am and about my community, and want to thank you for your commitment to medicine, and the community that you serve.
Thank you. Likewise, Kim. Well, thank you so much. We'll sign off again. Thank you, Dr. Kim Hartwig. Sorry for the silly flies that have been on both sides, your side and my side. Thank you so much, Kim. We'll talk to you later.
All
Thanks.
right.
Bye.